Katie, good to talk to you.
Good to be here.
Always something new, and today Senator Grassley takes to the floor, calls for Lanny Breuer to resign immediately, saying he misled Congress, that he was more concerned about saving face than about getting rid of this dangerous, deadly policy of gun walking. Your reaction when you heard this?
You know, I was happy to see Grassley do this on the Senate floor, because I think it, gives a much bigger impact when you're talking on the floor of the Senate and asking someone to resign. And the resignation call is great, but my next question is, when are the prosecutions coming? Congress can rattle the saber all they want when it comes to gun walking, but until someone's actually going to face real consequences for what went on, this can happen again. The people in the Department of Justice and ATF see it as, well, I might resign, but I'm sure I can get another government job somewhere. I'm ready for the prosecution part of this, and I think we need to just be patient on that. However, the resignation is great, but there is a step further that needs to be conducted here.
And there really is. And we were interviewing Congressman Walsh yesterday. He said he thinks it's time for a special prosecutor. And then you've got Congressman Ted Poe coming out today saying exactly what you said. We need to pursue criminal charges. Somebody's got to be held accountable. But I got to tell you, nobody gets fired. There's been all sorts of calls for resignations. Nobody's resigned. I mean, what's it going to take?
Well, and an interesting point that Senator Grassley made on the Senate floor today was, Attorney General Eric Holder should be calling for the resignation of Lanny Breuer. And if Lanny Breuer was an honorable man, he would step down. And if you remember a couple weeks ago when Eric Holder testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, they asked him directly, who are you going to hold accountable for this? And he wouldn't name names. He just kept saying over and over again, I'm going to hold someone accountable. And that's what we've heard is we're going to hold people accountable, et cetera, et cetera. But we need names. Criminal charges should be filed. And you think of it in the sense of, throughout this process, gun shop owners have been smeared. They've been accused of trafficking guns to Mexico. They're private citizens, right? So they would be held accountable for doing that under the law. Just because these are government agents does not mean that they are above the law, and that's something that we cannot lose as this story moves forward.
But, Katie, you look at this, and you look at the way DOJ has handled this, and Grassley comes out today and say, I'm upset about something else. I made an agree with him that they would have some more staffers available to us for interviews. And so what does he say today? They're not going to make them available.
Right.
I mean,
and this is after he made an agreement with the Justice Department. He said, we won't stall Barack Obama's court appointments, if you give us information, you give us these people within DOJ to testify about Fast and Furious, whether it's in public or behind closed doors. And Grassley held up his end of the bargain, but did the Justice Department? No, they did not.
No, and you got President Obama standing behind his man. I mean, it really is, and the American public and is starting to realize what's really going on, I think. I mean, it's taken a long time. You've got members out on the campaign trail saying he's got to go. But I really thought it was interesting today when Grassley was talking about how it's taken 10 months. We've been asking for documents. We had to file subpoenas. They sealed the records in the Brian Terry case.
Right.
And he says, they're calling it inaccuracies. And he says, and I'm using their words, that's not how he would describe it.
Right. Right, and it comes down to, and I love how the mainstream media is spinning this too. I mean, the document dumped last Friday, the AP headline was Justice Department explains how they got Fast and Furious wrong. They didn't get it wrong. They deliberately lied to Congress. They did it on purpose. They didn't get it wrong. They knew exactly what they were doing, and the emails proved that they were conspiring to, A, smear the whistleblower and say that he was crazy, that everything that he said that was going on in the Phoenix office didn't happen, and B, they were going to submit false information to Congress and deny the entire thing.
Yeah, and then go up there and, say, hey, what we need is really new gun laws,
Right.
But, Wayne LaPierre has been saying this from the start, that this was all about advancing the administration's anti-gun agenda. Yep. CBS today, have you seen this?
Right,
The evidence they have that shows that ATF discussed using the gun sales to advance what they called Demand Letter 3, which was requiring gun dealers along the border to report multiple sales of firearms.
Well, and we actually had the story at townhall.com in July.
Yeah.
This is an email that came out in July.
Okay.
And then you look at, the timing of this, like Cam has done this on his show and done this poll, but the American public's support for an assault rifle ban or new gun regulations is at an all-time low.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congress isn't interested in taking this up because the American people don't want it. And because the administration couldn't get these long gun reporting measures through Congress, what did they do? In July, they pushed through these new long gun reporting measures through the Justice Department through an order. Yeah. And they're just willing to go around, whether it's this situation or another situation, they're willing to go around Congress or implement programs like Fast and Furious to get their political points across.
Yep, and you got members of Congress running defense for them.
Right, exactly.
But tomorrow, Attorney General Holder goes back before ISIS committee again. No doubt it's going to be a tough line of questioning he's up against. But do you really expect we're going to get anything new out of this guy?
I don't think we will. I doubt that he's going to throw his Assistant Attorney General under the bus. I think he'll probably come out and say something like he made mistakes, he's acknowledged his mistakes, we acted in a bold manner when we found out about gun walking. The same thing we've heard over and over again. And the last time he testified before the Judiciary Committee a couple of weeks ago, he didn't do a good job of trying to hide the fact that he was, trying to cover for everyone else, because not only does he have to remember what he told Congress, what his timeline is, he has to remember the timeline of the president, he has to remember the timeline of Janet Napolitano, he has to remember the timeline of Dennis Burke in the U.S. Attorney's Office, he has to remember the timeline of Assistant Attorney General Lanny Brewer. And so this just goes back to, if you're telling the truth, the timeline's easy to remember, right? But because they're all lying, they don't know how to keep track of it all.
Yeah, and this latest document release doesn't make it any easier for him either because of this February 4th letter. But and not that I'm saying that it should be made easy for him. But, Grassley today talked about, and it's hard to believe, 1 year next week since Brian Terry was murdered, and his poor family still trying to get the answers. And you had Holder up there, so uncaring, he couldn't even apologize to them.
Mm-hmm. Right, and Grassley also said it's astounding that it took the public controversy of Fast and Furious to help the chief of the criminal division realize that walking guns is unacceptable, which is absolutely true. The apology from Eric Holder came after Congress questioned him, after Texas Senator John Cornyn asked him if he had apologized to the family. He said no, there was public outcry over that. And then he submitted a letter to the press before it got to the family, which just proves he wasn't interested in really apologizing for what happened here. He was interested in making sure his PR, his public relations, was looking okay.
Yep. Well, thanks for talking to us, and I guess we'll just see what happens tomorrow. Not that anybody's holding their breath.
Yeah, no problem at all.
All righty. Thanks so much, Katie.
Thanks. Bye.